Hello, this is Sophie Thomas for Raw 12:51am. I'm here with Lisa Dodd-Mayne, the Director of Sports and Active Communities here at the University of Warwick. Warwick is going to have a new sports hub in the next few years, and with Varsity coming up and different movements on campus such as Warwick Girls Can, we thought that it'd be perfect to speak to Lisa about all of these things. So hello Lisa.
Hello.
So Warwick wants to be one of the most active universities by 2020, in fact the most active. Do you think that Warwick will get to this? How do you feel that Warwick students are active on campus?
Okay, I think it's an interesting one because it is a very ambitious vision. Most people would say we want to have an active campus. And interestingly, yesterday when we had the topping out ceremony of the sports hub, the registrar talked about we don't just want to be the active campus, we want to be the most active campus. And I think for me that real ambitious vision matches what Warwick is all about. So Warwick is a leading world-class institution, with world-class students, world-class research, and we want to make sure that our provision here at Warwick, both in terms of sports facilities but also in terms of provision that we have to get people active, is also on that same level. So we've had that mission which has been endorsed by the university, which is great. So I guess the challenge for me is how do we know that we will be the most active campus in the UK by 2020? And I think a lot of that is down to do with measurement and tracking. So it's very easy for us to see who comes to our facilities. But for me, what's more important is actually how do we know people like yourselves who might never come in to use a sports facility but actually want to just be active in your own way. So how can we measure that? So we're doing a lot of work at the moment in terms of tracking, in terms of everyone's got a phone, so can we use a phone? How can we use technology in such a way that we can measure it? So I guess measurement's one piece. The big thing for me then is about actually getting people active. So I'm really, really passionate about getting people active, put simply, because it just improves people's health and well-being. We know that our students, lead a very stressful time often at university. They're under a lot of pressure. So actually by being active, that can help relieve some of the pressure and give them more energy. It actually helps boost study levels. There's so much evidence out there to suggest that being active is a good thing. So for me, it's about how can we try and almost get that into the DNA of students, so it just becomes something that you would naturally do, like you would eat, you would drink, you would sleep, you would automatically just be active. But it's doing something in a way that suits that individual. So we know people have got time pressures, so how can we put, say, activity on a class campus, which also is free. So we know that price often is a barrier, so some students we know can't afford a sports centre membership. So for me also it's about putting activities on that are free to access. So our Warwick Active programme has lots and lots of rock up and play sessions which students can access free of charge. You may well notice already across campus that you're seeing some pop-up sports. So a student might come out of lecture and there's a table tennis table there. Give it a go. Why not? It's just about us trying to be in the right place at the right time for the students, because I think the benefit of that is just unique. I think the other thing that I often talk to people about is almost that giving people permission to be active, which sounds a little strange because you might think, well, actually, everyone can just be active. It's a choice and they can. But I think sometimes because you are so time pressured, and particularly the staff community within Warwick, they feel like, they need to be at their desks working hard. Well, actually, sometimes you need to say, do you know what? Just go and do some activity for 30 minutes. Doesn't have to be a long time, but just giving them that opportunity to realise the benefits of being active.
Yes, so it's not necessarily just the students that you're wanting to become the most active, but also kind of the staff, and hopefully the staff and students and kind of work together to be an active campus.
And I think interestingly, if you think about what does that mean. So, I often talk to people about a spaceship bubble. So if you were in a spaceship and you landed on this campus at Warwick and people had told you it was the most active campus in the UK, when you got out of that spaceship, what would it look like? How would it feel? You would see people walking, you would see people running. But for me as well, it's a more relaxing type of activities as well. So, people now yoga, in terms of helping mental health. So thinking about some of the other activities that you could see, maybe yoga down by the lake, or it just becomes the norm. Our activity zone, which we just put in near Claycroft, has proved really, really popular, both from at one end of the spectrum where our performance sport athletes are using it for their fitness, but right on the other end of the spectrum, people just going and have a swing on the swings and actually relaxing, chilling out, taking time away, and
taking
it really
some
is
steam out of a really busy day to just
because then your brain becomes clearer, and actually that gives you then that brain power almost to just go on and carry on doing the studies that you've got to do.
Yeah, perfect. So with this new sports hub that's going to be at the university in the next few years, is it going to have new facilities that the current sports centre doesn't have? Is it going to be much bigger? If you could just kind of elaborate on that, that'd be great.
This is a really exciting project, and you can see me smiling now as my eyes light up about it. So it's a sport and wellness hub. So for me, this is an absolute step change in terms of the facility provision that we're going to have at Warwick, and the university have seen the importance of and realised the benefits that people being active can have, and obviously this significant investment, £49 million that we're investing in the sports hub and obviously the associated facilities around that. In terms of what it'll have, it will have the biggest gym in the HE sector. So the gym itself is the size of a 12-court badminton hall. So it is huge, because we know that there's a demand from our student population to be able to use the facilities. It'll have the biggest climbing wall in the HE sector. So as you walk in, front and centre, you will see the climbing wall. It'll have a 12-lane movable floor, 25 metres. 12-lane, 25-metre pool with a movable floor, 6 glass-back squash courts, dance studios, treatment rooms, combat hall, multi-purpose hall, and also a cafe, so there's a social space as well. And again, for us, it was about actually how can we make the building not feel onerous is probably the wrong word, but intimidating. So normally when you would go into a sports facility, you would only be able to probably see 1 or 2 activities before you actually go through access control. Here you can walk in and you can just sit and you can watch, so there's no pressure. So you can watch a little bit of squash, you can watch the climbing, you can see the sports hall, you can see the pool, you can see the multi-purpose room at the bottom, you can go and just sit in the cafe and relax. And also where it is on campus, it's a beautiful part of campus which is around near the Cryfield Pavilion. So it's nestles into the landscape. So for me, I don't want it to just be this building that feels intimidating to people. It needs to feel welcoming, and by that way people can look and then maybe actually want to try and go and do something a little bit active.
Almost a sort of social space for everyone where they can go and either play some sports or watch some sports and kind of get inspired and encourage everyone to be active. I also think it's really important that you say it's a health and wellness centre rather than just a health centre, because for me I think it kind of encourages more people to go there. They're not put off by the word health and fitness and active and sport.
Exactly, and I think even the word sport turns some people off. So for some people, sport means rugby, sweaty socks. Not for me, lycra. Actually, that's why for me, I'd rather people being active, and that might just be going for a walk.
Obviously, around the university, there's lots of professional sports teams. Will the new sports hub be bringing more of a presence from these professional teams? How will that work?
So at the moment we've got I guess probably 2 relationships, if I want a better word, or partnerships that we've got. So the first one is with Wasps Netball. So fundamentally, when we look at any partnership with any external professional sports club, the first thing for me is how will this benefit our students? Because fundamentally we are here, our number one raison d'etre is about increasing student experience. That is front and centre in terms of the Warwick Sports strategy, in terms of getting people active, but it's about how do we enhance student experience with everything that we do. And the reason that we did that, so the Wasp Netball relationship started by looking at actually how can this benefit the netball club. So they will come over, they will train in the new facilities, they currently train in the existing sports centre now, and actually what we're looking at now is how can we develop more of a relationship with them in terms of the club. How can the club get benefit from that? So by maybe seeing the players training, and last year we saw that the club benefited hugely in terms of the experience that they got being part of that Super League bubble, if you like, not just being at the matches and volunteering at the matches. So it gave the students additional skills. Similarly, the partnership that we've just set up with Kenilworth Squash Club, so we just entered the Premier Squash League for the first time in its history. So that's, I guess, dipping our toe a bit into the more performance sport type agenda, because I think there's room for everything at the university. But the benefit that that's given our squash club is just unbelievable. So I was at the latest match last night where we actually beat the University of Birmingham. We're second in the league. So we've got players that are coming in and playing for us. One is Sarah Jane Perry, who's an ex-Warwick alumni. So there's a lovely story there in terms of she's come back to play for Warwick and Kenilworth. But we also had a world number 3 playing for us yesterday. So the fact that our squash club are rubbing shoulders with players of that ilk
Yeah.
just inspires them, you know. And again, the experience that they're getting volunteering and doing all the work with the Premier Squash League is just unique for them. And for me, it makes them a more well-rounded student. You know, and I talk about when you leave Warwick, you will leave Warwick with a good degree. How can I make you more employable? And actually being involved in sport or being active can help you be more employable. So if you sit on a sports exec and yourself just being part of RAW, you're developing the skills that future employers want. Skills, negotiation skills, all of those skills. And we know that graduate employers look for people that have been involved in sport at university because they know that they will have developed that skill set that they need when they go into industry.
Perfect, yeah. I mean, makes me want to join squash right now if I can rub shoulders with the stars. So obviously you have professional and kind of university teams working together. You also have other initiatives on campus. I want to say initiatives, movements, that kind of thing. One of the main things this year that started is Warwick Girls Can. So kind of inspired by the global This Girl Can movement to encourage more females to be active. I was wondering what your opinions were on how successful this initiative has been, and whether you think there's room for improvement. Are some sports more represented by females? Are some sports very underrepresented by females? How is Warwick Girls Can on campus?
I think that initiated, so we've probably run that now for the last, I think it's 2 or 3 years, and that initiated, as you said, from the Sport England This Girl Can campaign, which initially when Sport England put that campaign together, there was a little bit of controversy over it because it's the first time that Sport England had ever done a campaign of such nature in terms of, you know, that national profile. But I think the important thing for me about that campaign was breaking down all the stereotypes, and that's what we tried to do at Warwick. It's the stereotypical, you know, you don't have to be dressed in lycra, you don't have to look this particular size or shape. For me, it was about doing something that you could do as an individual female. And we knew that there was, you know, we wanted to increase female participation in sport because there is often a drop-off when females go to university. So we did want to increase that and all the benefits that can bring. And we really did see that. And I think some of the people that came forward and were part of the campaign, if you like, they saw real benefit in terms of, this is something for me. And actually, some of the activities that we did, they weren't, you know, in front of a mirror, wearing lycra, feeling like I was going to get really sweaty. It was fun activities, but activities in an active way. Interestingly, we did also, I guess it is fair to say, we did have some comments from some male people to say, why are you focusing on the female campaign? Actually, can we not have a male-only campaign? So actually, we're looking at that.
Okay.
So it is something that we're saying, actually, is there something in that we could test out and run with? So we need to do a bit more work around that to see if that is that.
I was going to say, like, potentially to encourage males in more female-associated sports,
possibly.
Such as, I don't know, dance and Latin
possibly.
ballroom, that kind of thing.
Possibly. And I think it's an interesting one when you talk, you know, we talked back earlier about the Active Campus campaign, and people think that we would just work with sports clubs. Well, actually, for me, I think it's as important if we work with our societies, because actually a lot of our societies are active societies. So Latin ballroom dancing, you know, you like don't need to be salsa. That's really active. But people often probably traditionally would think that Warwick Sport would only work with sports clubs. And I think for me, it's about the name Warwick Sport just embodies everything that we do, and that is from performer sport, but right the way through to just the active piece, which for me is absolutely the most important.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of the last thing that we're going to be talking about is Varsity. So are you excited for Varsity? Is the general student population excited for Varsity? I feel a little bit of a buzz. I'm very excited to go and watch the basketball and the football. I
think you've started to see it happening. So obviously in January, you know, the Team Warwick banners have gone up, and they look amazing this year. You know, when you see them dotted around on the lampposts, and that whole Team Warwick campaign. And interestingly, just before we talk about Varsity, I think the Team Warwick campaign and the success that's had in terms of everybody feels part of it, and that Team Warwick ethos. And I remember a couple of years, Ken Sloan, the previous registrar, would talk internationally about how that has actually helped build communities across the university, because everybody feels part of it. So you don't necessarily, you know, coming to Varsity, you don't necessarily have to be competing, but you can play your part. So it's a 27th year. We are unbeaten. I started 3 years ago at Warwick, and I think a month later it was Varsity.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, we can't lose. I can't lose. But we haven't, and we've won every year, which is often a lot of pressure on the sports officer. So Ellie this year will be feeling the pressure that I can't be the first sports officer to lose, but I have every confidence in our teams. But for me, the real success of Varsity and also Team Warwick is the bit that everyone can get involved in. So yes, people will be competing, but also we've got people spectating, we've got people volunteering and maybe officiating at some of the matches, but also some of the society input. So Raw, last year did a fantastic job in terms of covering, I certainly heard the rugby, the finale Varsity final, because I was at home with a knee, I just had a knee operation, so I watched it on Raw TV, and it was the best coverage I genuinely have ever seen, even down to professional coverage, because of how the commentary told the story about the game and what was happening. So I think, we've got Raw are involved, the board get involved, so for me it's that wider social piece and the media piece that everyone can play a part in it, and we can come along. For me it's a chance of 3 or 4 days to celebrate sport. Everybody can play their part, and what's not to like about it, really? And that friendly rivalry with Coventry, it is friendly rivalry. We're lucky in one respect that we do have a good Varsity with them. So I guess my message to everyone is, come out, come support, play your part, but represent Warwick in that professional way that we know Warwick students do, because we are absolutely
and also
brilliant.
Go and see the sports that aren't necessarily the biggest sports, like try and see if there's something new that you can go and watch and maybe get inspired for future years as well.
Exactly, and go and support everyone. So last year it was great to see, the rugby players watching the netball players, and then the netball players going to support the basketball players, and you could just see that team approach and that Team Warwick approach,
Team Warwick
galvanised
from everywhere, whether it be student media or the actual sports themselves, or just kind of the general student population.
And last year, some of the results were just brilliant. The Friday night last year in the sports centre, you had basketball in one hall, you had netball and volleyball going off, and it just was absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm very excited. So that is it for this interview with Lisa Dodd-Mayne, the Director of Sports and Active Communities here at the University of Warwick. I'm Sophie Thomas for Raw 12:51 AM.